So we'll get started here, but we'll go ahead and welcome you guys up here. I'm gonna turn this off since we don't make that showing.
All right, so I am going to kick us off by first introducing myself. I'm Kristen Alex. I get to be the area superintendent that supports the Cedar Park feeder pattern as well as the Ross feeder pattern. And when I drove up today, what an amazing job you guys did. The time that you all put in, was that last weekend? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weekends ago. It looks great. It looks really great. You are here in your shirts and all in almond blue, and it definitely shows us the pride that you have in your campus. Not that other campuses don't have that pride, but you all being here really tells us where your heart is. So thank you all for caring about the neighborhood school and caring for what goes on here. So I'm thankful that I'm not here by myself. I will let Mr. Trimble introduce himself.
So, good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for sharing your time and allowing us to come share time with you. So my name is Jeremy Trimble. I serve as the Chief Operations Officer for the district. I had a little stint before, went away and came back. And so I came back around 7 to 8 months. And so I'm glad to be back. Just a quick history lesson on me. So I've been part of this broader community for over 40 years. I grew up in this area, and I've got kids in schools. My wife's a teacher. So we've been very invested. I'm a proud product of the school system. I graduated from Leander High School. And so I know how meaningful these conversations are for you, especially at this time, at any time. And so I'm just glad that I can be here to have a dialogue and a conversation with you today and in the future as well.
All right, so we want to get started and be sure that we are sharing what we know and thinking through that transparency lens. I know that we can hear one thing and like the game of telephone, it can go 12 different ways. And so we are here to share where we are in the long range planning committee, certainly transparently to let you know what we anticipate next steps being, but then also to answer questions if what we're sharing does not answer those, okay? So we'll start with, and I don't know, you gave some history, so maybe I should give some history. I used to be the proud principal at Cypress Elementary down the road just a little bit, and have 2 amazing children who went through elementary through middle and high school in this district. I believe in public education. I love that I get to see my little people now are humans that I like. And so I truly value the family that I have been a part of in Leander ISD. And so I relate to that, not just working here, but also trusting that I trusted my teachers and the staff to help me raise my babies. So that's a little bit of history with me. So Jeremy, would you like to kind of talk us through where we are with the long range planning? And even maybe back us up to a board meeting where we heard a matrix and there may have been a name or 2 that could have been thrown out there. Will you start there?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to do my best to frame some context for you because, like I said, I came on about 7, 8 months ago, and so I was getting caught up as well. And so a couple years ago, the board put together a long-range planning committee. And as we know, a lot of things can happen over the last couple of years, and so their charge has been a little bit flexible, and they've adapted to some needs driven by the Board of Trustees. But they have been working continuously just on this concept, looking at our facilities and optimization and things like that. And so I will go to the January 9th meeting, and a lot of things that you're going to refer to both in your mind that you may have heard is from a January 9th of this year board meeting. And what January 9th represented was kind of a summary culmination of work that the Long Range Planning Committee has done over last fall for the most part. The board tasked them last fall to go look at a couple of things. And so that was the summary. But what one of those subcommittees, Facility Optimization Subcommittee, came up with, they developed a matrix, kind of a tool to help kind of analyze our campuses and given their reality now and looking into the near future. So they kind of developed a tool to assist the board in looking at different considerations in the future. So that's what was done. In January, though, the committee was presenting, and the only way to really show how the tool worked is to kind of show the results of the tool. And so they ran through some scenarios that they had ran back in May of 2024, the 2024 school year. They kind of presented some results. As many disclaimers as we can put on the screen, it just sometimes you see what you see and it creates a reaction. And so we respect that and honor that and understand that. So the main thing I want to cover tonight is that I don't have all the answers for you as a Nauman family because we don't know. What we're doing currently is working through long-range planning with the board. And so they're looking at things like open enrollment. They're looking at different, possibly innovative academies, looking at facility optimization. What's going to happen is over the next couple of months, the board is going to kind of see some of the results of these tools being utilized. And so I want you to stay engaged as a community. I don't know what the outcomes of those are going to be, but the board's going to discuss this. I think what's going to happen is at the end of May, be paying attention. I know we got into school year. Be paying attention there to some of the discussions and the considerations that the board's going to navigate through. The board, both an administration and as a community, we've got a lot of challenges in front of us, right? You've seen a lot of the budget conversations. We have two extremes in our district. We have growth and some decline, and then we have kind of like stabilization here in the center part of the district. It's something new to Leander ISD. And so with all these different parameters, the board's going to continue to work through those. But I can't share like what any recommendation is going to be because we just don't know right now. But what I can represent is what I said before. Like, I know how important these schools are to the families, you, to the neighborhoods. And I also know they're more than just buildings. We're not looking at any decision based on the building itself. They're not just buildings. These are the hubs. You can see it happening right here in this room. Hubs. There's tradition, the namesake with Pauline Nauman, right? 40 years, taught for 40 years, like the only fourth grade teacher at one point in this district. So there's just a lot of history and tradition that we want to make sure that we don't forget and when we're making a lot of decisions like this. Ultimately, in May, when the board looks at any considerations, can't tell you what campuses may be discussed, but there will be engagement with the communities, with the stakeholders, any campus that would be directly impacted by any decision. I just want to let you know there's going to be an opportunity for feedback, an opportunity for dialogues, just like this, probably on a larger scale. But we don't want to forget about how important these schools are to you as a community, and we need to get that feedback. What's important to you? If your campus that would be, you may not be, but we just have to kind of go through this process. And again, thank you for reaching out so we can come here and have this conversation, make some connections. I'm trying to see if I recognize anyone in this room. I had a couple friends that lived that way on Brighton Bend when I was in the area. But that's what I have to share, and I know it's very like, bleh, you give me any information, Jeremy. But I want to. This is the start to the dialogue that we will have with Nauman to be affected in the future.
And so I want to kind of play off of that a little bit. And maybe the last board meeting, we were really stuck in the where are we going with our budget, and it was mentioned, why don't we close schools? And so can you talk to us a little bit about where Dr. Erie is with that, where our board members are with that right now in this process?
Yeah, and so that was when we look at all the parameters that we have and the resources that we have. We do have to be good stewards of our resources. Those are our campuses, right? And so we have to kind of remain proactive in some sense. So the board was just looking at what conversations are we having, and is this the right time or not? Currently, as we stand, a lot of things can change, but currently as we stand, we need time to do this. We want to do this the right way, and the right way involves everyone in this room. And so that's why, when I've mentioned kind of in that May time frame, that allows some time to get feedback on anything, any considerations, and allow the board to kind of navigate through that feedback before they make any ultimate decision. And so that's why nothing's being closed for next year today, right? I mean, again, the board is navigating a lot of tough conversations, but I'm pretty confident that that's probably not going to pivot given that it's May 9th or April 9th. And so that was a good conversation the board had, constructive to allow for the time that's necessary for a big decision, big discussion like campus optimization.
And so for me, like as I'm learning and growing through this, so I have looked at different school districts and had questions about, so a school district is one school district, Richardson has done something this way, Eanes has done something this way, and I have been able to go to Jeremy and ask, like, where are we, how are we gathering our information? And one thing that Dr. Gearings repeatedly has said, and then Jeremy just said the same thing, which is we really value our communities, and our intent is to involve community in our decisions. The decision is not, there's no intent for a decision to be made at a board meeting, done. That's not the intent. So I have received several emails from people with some concerns that is what the intent is. And like Jeremy said, things can change, things always can change, but that is not the intent. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about long-range planning, because when you're saying you want everyone in this room, I think the hard part for the Nauman community is we stayed up in January, a lot of us, and watched that board meeting till midnight or whatever it was, and it felt a little bit like we were caught off guard. It was like January, we found out there's a long-range planning committee, we found out Nauman's on the chalky block, we found out all this stuff, but then we hear that all of his long-range planning committee people are all Steiner parents, principals, like they all knew about this. And it kind of felt like they were on the committee and we were not. There's no representation on that committee from Central. Like none of us are there. And it just kind of felt a little off balance, if that makes sense, because they have all that knowledge and they knew, and they're actually on the committee. And I know Trish was helping them, guide them in different ways. And then if you watched the second meeting, I don't remember what month it was, not January, it did feel from the non-parent side, like Trish was like moving this along and she wanted us to like wanted them to make a decision on this. And it kind of felt like, well, the district says they want everyone and we all matter. It kind of felt like Steiner matters and Nauman's just kind of like, well, here we have this committee and we made this stuff. And I was kind of wondering why we didn't have like an outside, committee come in and analyze this for us, and why we were using parents who necessarily, we're going to have a bias towards Nauman. They're going to have one towards their schools in Steiner. So it's like, why didn't we have someone outside come in that's not biased and that can look at this, the general scope of it? Because it kind of does feel like no matter what the long-range planning committee says, it's not going to be for Nauman. You know what I mean? It's like they can't even help that. So that's kind of like, that was frustrating to see that, and we had no clue.
Yeah, I think so. Representation is really important. And so what we have to do in this district, because that was a big committee. That's a big committee. May not have seen all of them, in that presentation, in that board meeting, but we had over 60 people on the committee. And so what we have to do is represent feeder patterns, right? So we at least get feeder patterns and work our way down. We may not have representatives from every single elementary school, all 48 campuses.
But why not?
Yeah.
Why not? There's
Yeah. No, I
60
understand.
people on that committee, sir. Why not?
Yeah, well,
One from every single elementary school.
There's at least 10 from that area, and there's not one from
I'm
here.
sorry, that is the cop.
So one thing to consider is that with any committee, we have to have norms, okay? And so we did have norms. In every committee that we have, the decisions that we're making are for the district. They're not for any specific area. I know it could be perceived that, not for any specific area. The entire committee would have to vote on what moves forward. The one thing I do want to represent, though, is what we're trying to pivot is to a framework in which the board can navigate through, given that information that they have. They now have a tool that can help them navigate these difficult decisions. They're going to be data informed. I do want to say that. They're not going to be necessarily data driven where the data is the decision. They're going to be data informed because there's other aspects that we need to look at with all of our campuses. And so it is a big committee. It's a big committee to move. But the one thing, all the decisions that needed to be made, the one norm was that we need to make decisions what's in the best interest of our students. And it's not what's in the best interest of Vandergrift High School, or Cedar Park High School, Rouse High School, Winter High School, Bristol Ridge High School, or Glen High School. And so I believe we had some good dialogues, some good conversations. The main thing is, again, we're going to refer back to January 9th. January 9th, again, was an example of how a tool could work. That's not a recommendation. Those are not recommendations that we're going to be endorsed by the board. It's just the best way to show how that tool worked. So now the board can kind of reconsider everything on a level playing field to where the board's representing the entire district. And they're ultimately the ones that are going to have to make decisions like that we're talking about, not necessarily a large committee. So, but I respect perception. I definitely do respect the perception.
So I have a question. Let's talk about the influence of a big part of this and all that and enrollment. So I have a question for you guys. As we're moving forward, there's a lot of pieces that play into this, like you're mentioning, that aren't just a data point. When you're talking about community and history and what the school means to not just the kids in it, but the kids incoming and the kids in the neighborhood. And at our school, these kids leave here, they pull out the doors, they go to the park, and they go play, and they ride their bikes. That's not a factor on any data sheet. So how do we as NAMN communicate that as effectively as possible? Because that's an important piece of what we are, and that's not on their sheets. And I don't know if they're visiting our neighborhood to see that either.
Yeah, I think so. Like I mentioned, the tool is going to be utilized if there's needs within this district. And again, this may not even happen to NAMN. I'm just saying that tool is going to reflect the resources that we have, and that could be a consideration. But the one thing where that comes into play is that dialogue, that feedback, right? I mean, that's really the one way that and the part of the process that we need to ensure happens is because if we don't have any dialogue and any feedback, then that kind of information can't form the ultimate final decision, because that is important. The only way to get that really is feedback from our community, from our parents and students as well.
And so can I clarify something before we move on? So I think that a question that I might be hearing is, so what is the point of the feedback if there's a tool and the tool is saying that this is the recommendation, but what I'm hearing you say is that there may be recommendations that are made before or after the feedback. I'm not sure what the process will be, but the feedback then also informs the next step. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so the tool is going to identify, given needs that we have in the district, what considerations should the board have, given from a facility standpoint. And then we understand that these campuses mean a whole lot to our community. So we need to understand what is important to that community, to that school, both from a history and a tradition standpoint, but also a future outlook. What's important? That's where we need to really gather that information.
That the spirit of the school is our kids, and the idea of closing the school down, you're literally uprooting those kids from their lives. I think what she's trying to emphasize is
That's
that
the way to share that with the board so they hear what we're saying. Is it the emails? Is it the sessions? Is it, where are they going to hear these things the most? Is it the board meetings? Like, what's the most effective way for them to hear what we're saying?
So I will tell you from a board member standpoint, there are many ways that you can communicate with the trustees. They do have emails. We have Let's Talk. Let's Talk's another one. And we also have the board meetings. So there's ways that you do have a voice as a community and as parents. You do have that voice. No matter what, we have that, whether it's this subject or another. You do have access to those board members if you feel that you need to identify what's important to you in that way. You can do that at any time. I do want to reference that. It's not, you don't have to wait if you believe that you want to get that information out to them.
I'm a bit of a nerd, so I'm going to ask metrics questions.
Yes.
Will the, sorry, it's the engineer me. Will the metrics used in the evaluation be made publicly available? And will we have an understanding for how the tool works to know how we're being evaluated?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how this is going to be just framed. I just want to preface that. So that tool and working through that, once we get to those results, then we'll work with the board on how exactly do we want to communicate that? How do we tell the story? Because there's going to be a story attached to any consideration that we have. We want to make sure that we tell the story in a way that can be understood. And sometimes.
I think the results can be a story, but when we talk about data is very.
Hard data.
Yeah.
Is the raw data going to be available for all communities to look at as you guys look at it and then come from your objective?
Again,
Well, as Jeremy can probably speak to this, as far as the matrix is built so far, the one direct, realistic portion of it is the occupancy of the schools in this area.
That's one metric.
These are parameters I'd be interested in understanding, because
Right.
then we'll have a better understanding for the decisions or the data points that you're making decisions around.
I agree with you.
No, go ahead. Well, so I keep hearing the needs of the district. That's what's being shared, but this will all be, all the scenarios can differ based on the needs of the district. My question is, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but my question is, who decided what the needs were of the district? Was this what the district wants to do? Leo Center, Early Childhood Center, police station, things like that. Now, can't necessarily answer all of them.
Sure.
But was there input from what the community needs versus what the district thinks the community needs for all of these things? Because all of those needs are crazy costs too, which then now affect other locations by saying this is a need we have over here.
Yeah, so what we wanted to identify, at least administratively, right? So there are some needs that we need to make sure that we consider. But also with the long-range planning committee and just looking at it from an innovative academy standpoint as well. So again, we do have a committee that has community representatives from different feeder patterns. Our hope is that we get input from that committee in order to identify what are some of those priorities. I'll tell you that some of these needs will not be fully made by this time. So we're going to continue to have needs in this district. We're going to continue to have to pivot given our situations. And so needs are going to continue to come up. What the board does understand is administratively, what are some of those things that we need to find space for? And how we do that, we don't know. And that's kind of what the conversations are going to be in May. It's just looking at those needs, understanding from an innovative academy, what kind of innovative programs may we consider, and working our way through that matrix and matching those considerations. But again, the conversation will continue. Conversation will continue to identify some of those needs in this district.
And I guess that's the fears, because a decision will likely be made or presented based on what the current expected or said needs are, which may not actually be the needs of our district. It's what the wants are of the district administration. So I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm like, yes, we had this matrix building out, but it's built specific to match the needs that we've identified over here that someone or somewhere has identified that may not actually be the needs that we have.
So ultimately, the board,
Again, wants.
the board gives a thumbs up to those priorities, and some of those are program enhancements, program expansions as well. New Hope High School is one of those examples of those programs that has been considered for a long time on expanding that opportunity in our district, just given their current status, and that we're trying to find another solution for the future.
So hypothetically, so the committee is gonna continue to meet, and then in May, they are gonna bring recommendations to the area. And at that time, you are going to be reaching out to potentially affected schools to get feedback. That's what I'm hearing. So I want to know, what is the most efficient feedback that our community can submit to have an effect, if that makes sense? Like, so I mean, I know you said like there's emails, there's this, that. What's the most effective way to provide feedback that will matter for our area?
That will matter.
So one thing, I genuinely believe that your opinion matters no matter what. But the one thing is, we have to be careful with recommendations and considerations. recommendations is a strong word. It's more considerations for the board to have a conversation. If we go to recommendations, there a lot of times we can perceive that as the plan. And so we want to frame it around considerations. The board's going to have a dialogue around these considerations. And if it's something that they would want to move forward with, immediately we're going to open up the, communication with those affected campuses.
So what does that mean? Like,
Yep.
are you gonna send an email blast out to all the parents of Nauman?
So hypothetically, with whatever campus it is, then what we want to do in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
One way is we want feedback. Y'all may have participated in like a thought exchange before. And so it's kind of that you share thoughts. It's actually a survey tool as well. That would come out immediately after that. But then also, we would schedule some community engagement events just like this. But again, just remember that the Let's Talks and board meetings, those still happen. So that's still an opportunity. That's always ongoing. But given whatever direction that administration may get from the board, we would immediately want to engage those communities.
So who shows up? So physically, who is going to show up at those meetings to say that you're gonna orchestrate?
Oh,
It's gonna make the most impact. I'm trying to figure out what's gonna make the most impact.
Tangible
Like,
things.
I feel like it's a
Tangible.
very tangible metric, right? Numbers kind of speak volumes,
But
right?
in May, once they decide, that's done. Like, it's too late. We're not.
well, that's the thing. The administration is going to present considerations. Now, they're not going to approve in that meeting, right? It's like, okay, well, we're going to consider this. If this is the direction we want to further consider, now let's go get the feedback from our community. Let's go engage our community before we make that ultimate decision.
I think do we have a date as to when we'll?
No, so just remember, in May, we're going to go in front of the board and have a dialogue with them within this framework. So I know we want to get to like, when's the date? When can we go show up and meet? I don't know that. Can't commit to that right now because we don't have the considerations at this point.
Ultimately, you're saying that come early May, you'll have a discussion, maybe there's too much feedback, you guys won't get to it, the school year might start, and everything will go back to normal until you guys make a decision.
So again,
Is that a possibility?
immediately after we have dialogue with the board on considerations, that's when I'm going to reach out to our communities that are affected. Again, I'm not saying the NOM is going to be affected.
Right.
Any of them are going to be affected. So then we gather that feedback, we analyze that feedback, and then we're going to share that with the board for additional consideration.
Okay.
And that'll probably be just after the school year starts, right? And then that's when the board will have to make an ultimate decision. But again, we're going to
When is that
engage.
you guys want?
The exact date, I can't tell you the exact date, but it will happen.
It'll happen before the summer ends.
No, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do that to you, right? Because I don't know what your vacation plans are, and so I want to allow you to get back. And I want to allow you to start school, and I want to allow us to have a meeting when everyone is back engaged in school.
Previous timeline had said presentation of the considerations, recommendations, April, and then decision in May. That was a previous timeline on a board meeting. Not this last one, I didn't see that one, but a meeting or two back. Are you saying that timeline has changed?
It was actually June for the considerations for optimization was June, so we wanted to make sure that we hit in that May timeframe. So we kind of actually moved it up a meeting. There's several other conversations that
are
occur, like open
related.
enrollment and some of those living academies that happen at different times. But we wanted to actually move it up so we're hit that May timeframe.
Do you guys meet throughout the summer?
June, and then move back in August
Okay.
for board meetings.
So I have a question, but then I think I have a comment for the parents that are in the room. Out of the 60, going back to the committee that you were speaking about earlier, you said that there's representation from the leader patterns. Do you know approximately how many people are included from the Cedar Park leader pattern?
I don't know how many were on that committee. I would share that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious if it's like, to Tracy's point, if we don't have representation, if it's too late now to include representation from the Cedar Park feeder pattern. And, I understand that this has been going for a little while, but I'm curious about that. In the pure transparency, I'm a parent in this feeder pattern, I'm a homeowner in this neighborhood, I'm also a teacher here. Sorry, this makes me so nervous. I can speak in front of fourth graders all day long. This is like too much, but
Doing great.
Before I came back to teaching, I found myself in a situation where I felt very passionate about something with the district. It had to do with busing to our neighborhood. And, just like looking at and hearing everybody's perspectives, like we are so passionate about Nauman. It is like magic here, right? But sorry, y'all, I'm not even emotional. This is just
We're all in our underwear.
Oh my goodness.
I think we need to, as much as we love Nauman and as much as we love this school specifically, remember that everybody feels that way about their school. Everybody loves their teachers. Everybody loves their community. Everybody has special things and traditions that they want to maintain. So like if you're asking what's the most effective thing, if we can like really centralize our thoughts around how we help to solve the problems. So if the district can speak to us about like what specifically are we facing that are the problems. We have like brilliant minds, and when we put our minds together, maybe we can come up with a thought that hadn't been previously presented. Like my original thought was, and I've heard it from a lot of people, why are we building schools further north that haven't established those communities yet? And we're kind of forgetting about the schools that have. But also, I understand fully that I don't know what the operating costs of running an older school might be. Maybe it's cheaper to build than to maintain.
Home because I want to work in this district. I want to work in this school, in this community. There are teachers at our school currently being reallocated, and they don't know where they're going to go. And they live in this community. That stinks.
And I think that goes to support what we're trying to do is, if anything, if there's a change for any campus, we want to at least get to a point that by the end of this school year that we can have that communication. We can start having those conversations. We don't want this to go on and on and on and on without some type of communication. And again, that's why it's important that in May we have this conversation with the board. So if the board wants to give administration any type of direction, anything to consider, we want to immediately have those conversations. And you bring up a very good point with the kids you do.
She's having to hire probably now. I mean, like I know of a few teachers that are moving away, moving home. And so we know of positions that are open. That's just, how would you recruit to a campus where that possibly would be closed in a year? How would you recruit?
Yeah, so one thing is that I don't want to jump to conclusions, right? Because again, I don't know administratively if Nauman is even gonna be considered.
Can we read between the lines in what you're saying, and you're like leaning towards that's probably not in our path?
Nothing more than to say. But I can't. Why? Because it's a super important conversation we have to have with the board of trustees, right? And so we want to provide them with information. You want to provide them with the value of Nauman Elementary. So then when those conversations are occurring, they consider all these different components. That's why I can't.
Not in our favor. What is the feedback and where do we go?
It seems
like that. It seems like it would be easier to bring them to us. Like we could fill this whole room with the board, they would stand here. And if they went to each school impacted and they could view that instead of all of us coming to see our middle school for 5 hours.
I think it's going to be really important as we get communication out on how we want to do each type of collaboration with our communities to give feedback like how can we do that best for you as a community when it comes to that point for any of our campuses. We always want to have feedback on even how could the conversation be more valuable to you as a community that you feel like your voice was heard. And so we need to take that feedback as well. Again, feedback you can share with the board. There's many different ways. I don't want to stop you from doing any type of communication with the trustees that you feel is valuable to you as a family.
Sorry. Go ahead.
In and out, like I normally say. As far as, I know you talked about demographics, like historical data, numbers, and things like that. Future demographics, everything is cyclical. What does that look like in the matrix when it comes to the future of the neighborhood?
Yeah.
You know, the turnover as new families come in. Is that part of it?
It is, and so we looked, our demographic report always goes like 10 years out, right? So go to year 10, right? I mean, a lot of things can change, but one thing unique about the central part of the district is it is all about regeneration, right? There's not a whole lot of homes being built. And so the main factor is just regeneration. And so as we look at regeneration, that is slowed down. So the growth, even in the Reed Elementary area, that growth will never be as high as when those homes were brand new. And so our demographer goes 9 layers deep in all the analytics to really look at it. We focused on the central in Cedar Park and what's going on here pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and looking at that regeneration, that we're just not getting enough new students moving in to resupply the students moving out. Our ultimate problem right now is that we have reasonable senior classes in Cedar Park High School that graduate, and our kindergarten classes are small. And so it's a bubble that's going to work itself through the system. And
So the end will burst in like 20 years and I'll have the same issue then with the district. I think, right, so like this is a bubble here now, but then it's gonna be somewhere else, we'll invest there and we'll have the same issue, right? Like that's a long range sort of thing that will happen then, right? Because new houses, but then they're gonna stop building in certain areas, and so we're gonna build too much stuff, and then we'll just keep seeing the same cycle, right? Like that's what will happen.
Again, so we have to build to what we need, okay? And so if the analytics, if the demographic projections show that we need that many seats for those students, we have to accommodate our students somehow, some way. A lot of decisions have been made around even future high schools and middle schools. This district has kind of said, what can we do to push that out to where we don't need to invest in a new middle school and a new comprehensive high school? What measures will we take? And so that was intentional, that was made a couple of years ago to try to push that out as far as possible. So we're not building a comprehensive high school in an area that, again, may not need it in the future. And so we can use the resources that we have.
So I am a data analyst, okay? And one of the things that I know, looking at large sets of data, and I work with workforce data, right? The trends and how they're going. What we see in 5 years is so drastically different year over year. So you mentioning that you're seeing data and like projecting 10 years out. That seems like a big fallacy, like to even do. That doesn't seem something to actually like ground decisions on, considering that year over year things are drastically changing. So for, the folks that are more interested in like where's the data coming, where's the metrics coming, who built the tool, what system is it being run on, and what perspectives are actually being seen, like if Central doesn't have a perspective, then the tool itself can be biased, right? So to your point, where's the raw data? And where can we see like the demographic data that you are projecting, but the raw data, not the story planning? You can tell stories.
Exactly. I can switch up the data, tell a story.
Yeah. We can embellish it, we can change
Yep.
it, we're getting this.
all day.
Imagine the conversation that we're having with like Google. But the thing is that 10 years is way too long to say what's going to happen. And unless we can actually see as a community, like where is this data coming from? It doesn't seem like there's a good recommendation that's going to be set in stone, right? If we're basing it on data. So to everyone's point that's here, the data can be built. We don't know what the data was. We're not part of the conversation of the data, but we're not part of the conversation of how to build tools either. I build tools for the company. I know what data can go into it, how you can spin it, how you can swirl it, and how you can switch out a story that, builds a narrative that you can follow, right? So to everyone's point, when we come back to the feedback, when petitions were good around the chopping block, when conversations like, how else can we see? Because on data, we're not going to be, data can be pulled in every way, right? So what else can we do, I think, is the whole point, and I don't think I'm hearing a solid answer aside from to show up to the board meeting of what else can we do as a community to really show up for the school that we have like come to grow and love.
I would like to add one thing to I think more options. So part of our thought needs to be going to the legislature. That's part of showing up for our schools. So I would encourage everyone to do that as well.
So you're dropping a card?
And I know that it may be frustrating because I know you want the information that I don't have and I'm not giving you right now. And that's the dates and like the how and the what. And there will be a time for the how and the what. I promise you, once we get to that point, that conversation with the trustees, there's going to be a point and that will be available. We're not hiding anything. I just want to let you know. We're looking forward to that time as well, that we get some of that additional direction so we can engage our communities.
And there are two different sets of data. There is an internal piece that the Long Range Planning Committee has developed. But then the other piece that he was talking about, that 10 years, that's that PASA data that we hire someone on the outside to do the metrics. So where there may still be a bias, I can't speak to that. But in the 10 years, then we still do that every year.
We do it every year.
So we recalibrate. So we start over with new data each year, and we still forecast out 10 years, but we know that that's not. We anticipate 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
the 10 years there,
Likely.
the value that 10 year may provide, right? And we typically want to focus on that 5 year. 10 years really looking at new facilities and kind of trying to help us navigate those decisions. But year over year, 3 years, 5 years becomes really, really important to find trends that we're
Like a 10-day weather forecast.
That's an art. Yeah. Okay, I got to get.
I don't want to interrupt any parent with a child. The child care has to leave. Unfortunately, we were able to provide free child care for this meeting tonight on the playground, but those people are needing to go. We had high schoolers and a grandma out there. So thank you to those people, and they will get service hours, but I'm bringing them up to the front. We'll have them in a line, and so just so those parents are aware that their kids are coming up to the front. Continue.
And so with that, if we do not get a chance to answer everyone's questions, and it is not something that you are feeling like you want to ask a board member, but you want to ask us, please feel free to do that. I know, Shanita, thank you for asking us to come and talk. Like we've kind of said, it is a little frustrating if we don't have the answers to give you, but I do hope that you're leaving with a little bit of peace and that there are no answers, that there could be rumors that are spinning that there are and there are not. We will be transparent at every stage where we have information.
Yes, that's one question, and I think all of us kind of asked similar question, but I'll just lay it down for her. So here's my question. So this is kind of, I'm learning, this is like a baseball game, and we are not a protected play. And we don't have like friends in the
Like where this is going, like the
we don't have a ex-team principal be on the board, but if you were a parent and ours, just give us one advice. What would be a future if we have all our kids cry just like
I like it, yeah.
speak loud. This is really good. Go for it. But just one. No, but I'm really serious. Just one. If you were a parent that has 2 more kids, a pregnant wife, that you bought a house here, and I'm not on those. Not a pregnant wife. But I do want to see another 25 years of no one around here. Just each different advice. If you were a parent with this shirt, knowing it can be us, it cannot. What will be advice from each one of you? But very specific, like.
That's incredible question. That's a good one, kind of to end us on as well. No, so as we talked about before, to me, as a parent, community member within a school, I need to reflect what's important to the families, what's important to me, and what's important about the school. And like really, really deep down, what is the most important thing to this family, this Nauman family? And that could be your perspective or just the collective perspective that you've grown to understand over the years. That, I think, is going to speak the volumes. It's just, yeah, maybe not crying babies and stuff like that, but it's just that a lot of times we want to connect like to buildings and things like that. That may speak to some people, but others, you kind of want to speak to the heart and what's important to this family. At no point should this happen to our family, right? That's what we're trying to do. Our own family, but also our friends, our extended family. So that's my recommendation, what I would do as a parent, because if it's not understood, I want to make sure everyone knows what's important, to this group. And that's just my angle.
I think it's the same. I was thinking maybe we would have like data and I would have the heart, right? Yes. But no, the heart, right? Like, so you are speaking, the reason you are here is because you love your children. I know Nauman likely has, and Cypress did, or y'all likely have parents who went to school here. So there is tradition, is long-standing tradition, and I think you share your heart. You share your heart, you come to things that we have, whether we have a formal gathering where we ask for feedback, you show up and you bring your heart. And then when we're here at this campus, we don't let the negative, what could be, interfere with the absolutely amazing what is now. And we keep building on that positive as to what is now, and we don't let the what if get in our way of the what is. So that would be what I would want to do as a parent. That's what I would want from you as a teacher.
If we don't have a heart, can we just bring data?
Yes. Bring us data.
So we can expect that our hearts, when we bring them, are going to make an efficient impact on the decision.
It might. He's saying.
It's great to bring heart, but let's talk carefully. Is our heart gonna make it? That was gonna make our brain.
Look at what our Lord hears. They hear your heart.
Okay, so actually that's my question.
Yes,
So that is going to be effective enough.
Yes,
Okay.
data is not going to tell, the story that data tells is the story that data tells. Only each of us can tell our story.
Well, the IB program is back at Leander, right? Is that all because of the heart of the student that's going with the meeting?
Yes.
So I couldn't tell you if that was a heart decision, data decision.
They were there at every.
But they were.
Yeah, they were. So I'm just, is that what we need to do?
Yeah.
But once they saw that was a consideration,
Right.
once they saw the consideration, right, then they got together and like, well, we need to make sure they understand our perspective, right? Because again, data driven, or data informed is what we're looking at doing. That brings heart.
I did make a recommendation to the board after listening to all those IB students. It was so good that they did. But to bring more heart to the board meeting, instead of saying speaker 1, speaker 2, maybe like Cassie or Billy, because then it's just like you have the list of names. So why not say to make it human? It was just a
long history there, I think.
Yeah.
How we got there. But
Governance.
yes, I can.
I can imagine, but still.
Yeah.
Just something she mentioned, it was cyclical, and we're wanting to build more because that's where they're building houses in here, and we're sitting in a bubble of older families. On my street alone, I probably have 10 people that, not to be morbid, but could pass away in the next 10 years, right? Because it's an established neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so now that 10-year, instead of building all these older homes, are going to get filled back up.
Yep.
So you're looking to build north, because in 10 years, we need to fill those schools. But when all these houses fill back up with new families, Where's the building gonna be to put those kids in the school? You know, and so are they looking, okay, yeah, this is an older neighborhood, but in 10 years, I'm telling you, my street alone.
What street
My daughter's the only kid, she's got 10 grandparents.
Same for my
Like,
kids.
that's just the way it is.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I know they're gonna be gone, and somebody's got to move into those homes, and it's probably gonna be young families,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And so I'll tell you, the demographer looks at that regeneration model, because what they do is they go backwards as much as they can in order to project forward and to look at what type of turnover are we getting within these neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, it has changed pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's interesting, but again, they do take those into consideration. It typically isn't enough to like really make a huge impact on the entire campus. It may impact the grade level or so, but they are considering that. They may not know those individuals, but that's a good example of some of that they're trying to track as much as possible. Census data is informative to them.
Kind of a comment for everyone. I'm also a data analyst. I work in public safety, figuring out where fire stations need to be built, stuff like that. So very similar. Something I deal with on a daily basis. So kind of telling the other data analysts, everything this district is a government body. So everything it does, including work product of the committee, is subject to open information reports. So I know you guys will release the data at some point and tell a story with it, but raw data and matrix and everything is subject to Open Information Act request. So
Thank you for that.
it depends on the district's record retention policies and when everything will be released. So I don't know LISD's specific policies, but I did look standing here. There's a link on their website on how to file public information.
Can we circulate that?
Yeah.
The link, yeah.
Shield Number Nights will put it up on the
Yes,
website.
thank you, Serena.
Thank you both for coming.
Yes, thank you.